Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live here in Victoria, British Columbia on this classical wooden motor cruiser along with my pup Geordie. All the while we're fixing it up for some pretty major cruising someday, so if that's the sort of thing you might be interested in, please consider sticking around and subscribing. We'd love to have you. Okay, so what are we up to this week? Yes, back into the engine room and we're gonna get the engine running. Stay tuned. Well, okay then, I'm back in my grubbies and back in the bilge, and it's time to start looking at getting this little old Perkins running. Now, a quick review. I installed this Perkins in here about 1.5 years ago, when I also installed one in my friend's boat, MV Zephyrus. We bought the two as a matched set. Both of our boats had old Perkins 6s in it that were both in bad shape, so I'm very, very pleased with it. However, this one has a few issues, and I'll just review them quickly. Starting off, this is the raw water pump, and this housing for it is cracked around the other side, so this needs to be replaced. This is a $590 part, but I think I can hack it to get it running, so let's move on from there. Coming around the front, the motor mount on this side is not suitable for an alternator bracket. The alternator has to sit right here, and so either I can figure out some other higher alternator, but then I run into the bottom of the heat exchanger, and I think I have to just bite the bullet and cut the engine bed down, much like I did on this side, to mount the standard bracket, although that's upside down, but it still gives me some more space. Now, it's disgusting that this engine bed has been cut down. Truthfully, it was already cut down right here to this same depth to clear the oil filter on the old engine. Now you can see I only have a few inches left of that engine bed. Now I have a plan to sister another heavy member on the outside of this and bolt them together, which will give it enough strength. So all I really got to do is get this working, and then if that all seems to work fine, I'll sister these engine beds, at least for now, until I do something smarter. So okay, got to get going on this side. Cut this out. I've already notched it somewhere, if you can see under there, for the oil filter, but I'll do a better job, neater, deeper, so I can change this engine mount. That will make a big difference. Next, the heat exchanger. I'm not going to haul it out of there just to show it to you, but it sits up here, and it has a leak between the fresh water, in other words, the engine coolant water and the seawater that goes through it. So I can't possibly put seawater into it right now, or it'll put seawater into the galleries inside the engine. So we'll do test running with fresh water off the dock, which is simple enough. We can do that. Next problem is the exhaust manifold, which isn't actually terrible. The worst part is this inlet here for the seawater, which is rusted through, and there's no way I'll ever get that to seal without some goop of some sort. But this whole end plate is actually replaceable for a couple $100. If the rest of the exhaust manifold is okay, we won't be too bad. Okay, so we're going to start with this motor mount. These are very deep custom or homemade motor mounts that were made for the previous engine to deal with these very high engine beds. But it just isn't going to work for this application because of the way the alternator has to sit right here and a couple other problems. Plus, I've already cut the engine beds down, and as I mentioned, I have a solution for reinforcing them. So there's no harm in cutting the engine bed forward as far as here, getting rid of these old motor mounts, keeping the vibration mounts, but they'll go down onto the new level, and I can reuse the genuine Perkins motor mounts but upside down. Normally they went this way down there, and obviously that'd be no use, but if you run them upside down, you gain about 3.5 4 inches. So that's the plan. So first thing to do is to jack up the engine on the other motor mount, and so that I can pull this out of here and get it all to the point where I can cut it. Okay, I've got the engine up enough that there's no weight on this, but I can't get this mount out easily without lifting it a lot more. But I think I can get the engine mount off the engine. Unfortunately, it's an evil box that I go to work my way up inside, and there's bolts way in the tiny one. Any of you who've ever done anything like this know exactly what I'm talking about. Ah, all right, up in there. Easy. Okay, all I'm going to do is cut this as I did on the other side on a bit of a slope, And as I get down through, I'm going to take a chisel and just split it off in sections and then clean up the bottom when I get there. I'm going to wing it is what I'm going to do. Can you tell? I'm just going to wing it. All right, so let's at least start going here. Nice! Now there's no doubt the proper tool for this would have been a Sawzall straight down in here. But amazingly, all those years building houses, I don't own a Sawzall currently. It doesn't seem like a boat tool to me. Anyway. Okay, now that I know there's no nails in here, I can move on to a good chisel, which just makes life a lot easier. Okay, so that was a pile of work, but that is flat and low and in the right place, and we can put this motor mount on upside down. Now, originally they went this way, but you can see that wouldn't leave me much room for an engine mount. So, but it's neat. I can just reverse them, and that'll work great. And of course, it's going to be a lot easier to put these nuts and bolts on. Actually, the nuts and studs. I'm going to have to take these off and replace them before I actually go cruising, if this all works, because these should be taken out, cleaned, and Loctited. But all right, then. Just fit this up under there. Now, the engine is too high now because I lifted it up on the other side to get the old mount off. So this I've calculated to be roughly how much further it has to go down. We'll see. Okay, we're sitting on it now. Okay then, well, obviously that was a miserable piece of work, but it's done. And over the course of this little project, I realized I'm just going to replace the engine beds. Absolutely, there's no sense in it. I've discovered how they're bolted to the floors, not particularly, in other words, not a lot of them, not a lot of bolts. So I'm going to put new engine beds in outside these ones and taller, and I'm going to put new engine mounts. But I'm not going to do any of that soon, right? Let's just see if this bloody motor goes. What's next in our little escapade here? Something in the way of an exhaust system. And well, the engine did come with a very, very sketchy exhaust elbow, which of course I'd rather not use in the long term, but I'm having to do this next phase really on the budget because I'm not even sure this engine is going to be viable. So getting it up and running I have to do with an absolute minimum of expenditure, and that's why this is perfectly good. All right, well, here comes a fun little project. I have to reach down into the bilge here and cut off the old, maybe you can see the end of it just underneath the rubber exhaust pipe there, steel exhaust pipe that traverses along there, because this whole section of it is of no use to me. I'm going to do that with a cutoff wheel and a lot of water. Just keep the whole area soaked, because we all know what it's like, sparks flying off a cutoff wheel. Gotta take my time, very careful. And we'll reapply more of that as required. This should be pretty straightforward. How about that? It's copper. No sparks even. Ugh. Heavy? Holy mackerel. Well, sorry folks. So what we have here is a massive, you can see how it was set up down here. The water came in here. I tried to cut this earlier while I was taking the other engine out and decided to take it apart a different way. I didn't realize that this whole thing was basically a exhaust elbow riser. Someone went to some great trouble to make this. I'm so glad I don't need it. Okay, so the last hour or so was not the sort of thing I think you would have enjoyed at all. I can certainly tell you I didn't. It meant crawling around underneath my bed, which is what's directly aft of here, where the muffler, which is directly opposite aft of this piece of exhaust pipe basically came completely dislodged because it was hanging on the hanger from this horrible thing that I've taken out of here. Anyway, I built a new bracket for it and a new support for it, and everything is going to be okay. What I'm going to do now, this is not in its final position, I'm going to cut this square so that I can put exhaust hose on it. What I do have, which is a bit of a perk, it's going to make this a little bit easier, is some nice new 3-inch rubber exhaust hose, which is about the only nice part of this whole project. Copper. Copper. Whoa! Actually, I suppose to be fair, it must be bronze, not copper. God, what it must have cost. Alright then, so I've got the exhaust weaved in here. Now this is not going to be fun if it is indeed even possible. And that's because this is not actually a 3-inch pipe. It's a little over. I'm not going to measure it because I'm just going to believe I can do this. So I'm going to put a little heat and a little lubricant in this and see if I can get it on there. Now, as you know, or as you may know, this is wound with wire. So there's not much expanding of this, if anything at all. I was hoping that was 3-inch. I was so hoping that was 3-inch. Okay, let's go. Oh, this doesn't feel like there's any hope. No, I can officially say there is no way that is going on there. I should have known. Alright then, well what we need to do now is set up an alternator. So I have borrowed the brand new alternator out of MV Zephyrus for this test, although I'll have to return it promptly. These are cheap. These are AC Delco style 10 SI. This is the most common alternator in the world, I'm sure. Very, very simple. 2 wires, well 3 really, but 2 of these can be jumped together. Very, very cheap on Amazon. These are $44 Canadian, rebuilt from China. But it does say AC Delco right on it. Anyway, who knows? Okay, so this is not a marine alternator. This is not spark arrested in any way. This is not an ideal situation. However, this is a diesel engine and it's a trial fed. If everything goes swimmingly and I start to go cruising and I believe that this is a reliable engine, yes, I'll splurge on a nice alternator. Now the only problem, the only bracket I have has about room for about 3 alternators. So it's the classic thing. I'm sure anybody who've ever played with one of these has gone, oh, well, that's nothing, no problem. That's just a stack of washers. I gotta see if I'm even in the ballpark positioning here before I go too far. See, right off the bat, I can see if I have to put that on the inside, I'm way too far aft. So I'm gonna have to turn this around and put it outwards, which means it's gonna be hanging down very low. Now, this whole thing is just not going to work. I not only have to borrow the alternator off of MV Zephyrus, I have to borrow the alternator bracket. Alright then, here it is in all its glory. Kind of a skanky mess made out of some angle iron and some plate. Anyway, it's really, really ugly. But it will do the job. Now, there is a beautiful Poly V, in other words, a serpentine style belt kit available for these engines, made by Transatlantic Diesel, which allows you to put a very high capacity, like a Balmar, is that the correct pronoun? Balmar? Yeah, alternator, like a couple hundred amps, maybe 150 anyway. But the kit is like $1,700 US. Yeah, not happening anytime soon. Okay, that's good. And the actual beast. Have you ever noticed that when you get to a 7/16 bolt, it could either have a 5/8 wrench or an 11/16 wrench? Everything else, 3/8 is, 9/16, half is, you know what I mean? But once you get to this elusive 7/16 bolt, there's the option for 2 different wrenches, and then sometimes it's 2 on the same assembly. For instance, the one on the front here is a 5/8, and the one on the back is an 11/16. All right then. There we go, beauty. Not super crucial because we're only putting this on so the crankshaft will spin the water pump. I'm not planning on generating any electricity. Now, some of you may recall that when I first got the engine running in MV Zephyrus, the heat exchanger, which is this beast right in front of me here, had a desperate leak out the end, and it was mixing, leaking between the seawater and the engine coolant water, which is what sits in the tank here. And so I swapped the two heat exchangers. This is actually the one from Zephyrus. Well, against my better judgment, I'm going to bolt this up, at least temporarily, and I'm going to see if I can fix this in situ. And the only reason I say that is because it's a reasonably good place to work, because it's going to be bolted down, and I can't take the oil cooler off anymore because the fittings for this are semi-permanent down on the bottom. You can't see them anymore, and they won't come off easily. So I'm going to mount this back up, and if there's any hope, I'd be very grateful. Now, I probably will try some ridiculously heroic stunts to try and get this to work, but we'll see. Again, I haven't put a gasket in there. If this is at all successful, I will take this apart again and put the gasket in. The ugliest part of this little project is going to be taking apart the oil cooler, because there's still going to be oil in it, and I have to be able to catch all of that. Now I have a bucket and I have lots of oilcloths, but still I hate oil. Hate it, hate it. Okay, so this rather unpleasant task begins. The way this works is this is an aluminum casting, and inside that there's a tube that is a copper core of lots of little copper tubes. And so the seawater travels through the tubes, which are submerged in the water in the header tank. Well, then they connect with another very small version of the same thing, a copper tube with a copper core with a whole bunch of little tubes in it, which travels in the immersed oil that's in this oil cooler. And the whole thing is held together with a long bolt that comes in from this end and taps into the end of this end cover. So basically I'm going to loosen it at this end with this big wrench, and as I do that, this whole assembly will start to get loose, and this oil cooler will become loose on the heat exchanger here, and it'll start to weep oil down here. Now, in a perfect world, all the oil in here would have drained down and into the block. But when I'm dealing with oil and engines, you never seem to experience the perfect world. So let's have a go, shall we? It is loose. Look at that. And there's no oil coming out. Oh, this could be a joy. Okay. And then if I take this off here, so the O-rings have held. In other words, no oil is leaking out there. There may still be oil on the other side of that. So I'm not going to get too excited about this. I'm simply going to take this and rest it gently over a bucket. There's a tremendous amount of corrosion underneath it here. You can see that there's water. This might just be too far gone. All right, well, I'm going to try and dig out the O-rings. The truth is, even if I get the O-rings out, I'm not sure I'll be able to get the tube bundle out, because it may be just corroded fast between the copper and the aluminum. This might not have been a very good idea. I have replacement O-rings. Alright, so the O-ring at the other end came out very, very easily. It's pretty clean down there. It's down here that we have the problem. Okay, so I'm going to try something pretty desperate. I'm going to see if I can shift the core. Technically, this inner bundle of tubes, the copper core, should slide right out now. But it's not going to, I know. So let's give it a little encouragement, see what we can do with it here. When I took the other one to the radiator shop to have him do precisely this, man, did he ever wail on it. So I'm not too worried. Oh, there we go. I'm not feeling too good about this. Okay, well, I don't know why I didn't notice that before. There's a huge crack down through here. This is finished. For those of you who have experienced this sort of thing, you're probably shouting out, yes, it's finished. So I was kind of hoping there would be enough depth that I could sort of cut a new taper, a new chamfer on this, but there just isn't enough material here. And that crack there, which I'm now going to give a little love tap to and see what happens. No. All right. Well, folks, I'm going to apologize because we're not going to run the engine this week. I wish I'd done this foolish little stunt in advance of swapping the alternator. In fact, I probably should have done this at the beginning. The truth is, I was going to just run it and let it leak. But what does that really tell me? Because as soon as it built up any pressure, it would just geyser out. And anyway, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I'll let you know when I do. Well, folks, it's been a couple of days since the heat exchanger escapade, and I've been reflecting on it quite a bit. And I have to accept that all I really wanted to do was feel the instant gratification of the engine running. Of course, it's not going to mean the boat is mobile. It doesn't mean I'm going to go cruising. I just needed to know that I wasn't living on a barge anymore. And, well, it meant I took great risks and pushed it too far and shouldn't have had any false expectations that I was able to get an engine running on zero budget and very limited time. So that's fine. There's lots to do on the boat, and I will be able to save up to get the parts I need to get this engine running, and I'm not the least bit worried about it. I just wanted to let you know that I'm still in a good mood. Cheers. Well, hello folks, and welcome to the Beer of the Week. This is glorious. This would be the first Upper Deck Beer of the Week of the year, and it is just a fantastic day out here. I'm enjoying it a lot. Okay, we're going back to my favorite brewery, which is Driftwood, and for one of their special editions, it's called Limb from Limb. They're calling it a rye PA. They're calling it a lumberjack rye hoppy. Let's see, it doesn't say whether it's an ale or what kind of beer it is. Let's see, it's pouring kind of golden, nice. Let's see if I can not mess this up with the last of the pour, but I would like a little bit of head on there. How does that look? Oh, fabulous. All right, so Driftwood's Limb from Limb on the first Upper Deck of the year. Holy mackerel. Limited edition. That is golden, buttery, yummy, little bit hoppy, fantastic beer. Oh god, I love this brewery. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, looking forward to the rest of this. So that brings us to saying great thanks to two new patrons that came on last week, Luke Hill and Eco Boater. Thank you ever so much both, and cheers. And as always, so grateful for all my past patrons. You've made this possible. I couldn't possibly do this without you. Okay, you're waiting for a word of the week. Well, word of the week this week, I think, will be satisfaction. There is such great satisfaction in this kind of day and this kind of work. So word of the week this week is satisfaction. If you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, put the word satisfaction in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random from the first 24 hours worth of comments. And if I pick your comment, I'll send you off a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. See ya, made it to another one. This is going to be a great afternoon.